Welcome to Routing for Success, the show where we interview today's top logistics professionals, providing them a platform to share their stories and best practices. I'm your host, Emily.
And I'm
Wynn.
your host, Jake Hirsch. Today, we interview Kamran Taqui with K&S Logistics and M&M Delivery. Kamran shares his experience temporarily sacrificing comfort for financial freedom and talks about leveraging debt to create extreme value in FedEx. You're not going to want to miss this one.
This episode is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. AP Equipment Financing can bring you the best deals on step vans, panel vans, cutaways, and more, deliver them straight to your facility, and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description to this episode or visit apfinancing.com.
Kamran Taqui with M&M Delivery and K&S Delivery. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Looking forward.
Kamran, I wanted to jump off with the first question. Can you describe to me how you look at good debt versus bad debt in your FedEx business?
Sure. So I think easiest way of putting it is if it's something you can live without, but you still want it, and you're using debt to get it, that's a bad debt. Imagine credit cards. If you cannot pay for something out cash, you shouldn't be buying that. We should be rethinking that. But if you can utilize debt to create value, to create a revenue stream, it doesn't have to be short term. It can be long term. So in my case, my horizon is 10 years. So I have utilized as much debt as possible. And I look at it, once my debt is paid off, what is my revenue stream looks like. So that's how I look at what is a good debt, what's bad debt. So even like the properties I've purchased them with very little down. I was telling you, I have 3 properties that I started purchasing in 2011, a year after I graduated, with $7,500 down. So my properties are worth probably $1.8 million right now with $7,500 down. And the way I did that is I went with the lowest down payment possible and put in a ton of sweat equity to create the value up front. Initially, like my first property I was paying insurance, PMI on it, until I fixed up the property and then refinanced it to get rid of the PMI, and then took money out of that and rolled it in. Same thing with my businesses. First business I purchased, I utilized ROBS conversion. So prior to joining FedEx, I was in corporate for 20 years. So part of the corporate, if you're smart, you have some money invested in 401k. I used my old 401ks and said, you know what, instead of investing it into the market, invest it into my own company. So I didn't have to put any cash down. There's a risk, of course, my company goes bust, I lose my 401k. But the value that is creating is the risk and reward is much higher. And then same thing, keep rolling it. So what I did with my first purchase, I used ROBS for the down payment on an SBA loan. And that loan, they gave me working capital as part of the funding. So they gave me enough working capital that I could use that to put it down on the second purchase. And then also got some working capital that I utilized in different places. So if you look at it, yes, I'm highly leveraged, highly risk, especially from a banker's perspective, somebody you should never do business with. But the value that it's creating, for me, is great. The challenge is you have to have reserves. You have to, if something goes wrong and you don't have reserves, then you're in deep trouble. So that's the other component of it, is have the reserves. So we have rainy day funds, and you can utilize that. So another component of a bad debt is if you're completely leveraged and something breaks, let's say $5,000 or $10,000 damage, you can't cover it, you shouldn't be doing that.
Kamran, can you talk a little bit more about how you decide for cash flow? What allocation do you need to save for a rainy day fund, and how does that impact when you're looking at taking on additional debt?
currently my business is I am trying to have reserves of 1 month of operating expenses. So that includes payroll, fuel, everything that goes into running a FedEx P&V business. So far, I've not had to tap into that too much, but that's what I'm trying to get to, is have 1 month, 4 weeks of operating fund ready.
I want to back up a second because something that you skimmed over was mind-blowing to me. So just so I'm understanding this, you put $7,500 down on a house. You then, it sounds like that house appreciated, whether it be through forced appreciation and you did maintenance on it, or just market appreciation. You then took money in a refinance out of that house and bought 2 additional houses. Is that
So
what
the story
I'm
is,
hearing?
my first house that I bought, the first time I went inside the house, I couldn't stand the house. It was that bad of a shape. I saw the full half of first floor and I walked out and said, this is not for me. It was
Wait, what was wrong with it, or what
it
was going on?
was rented to college students for about a period of 10 years. 4-bedroom house had, I want to say, 6 students living in it, and at least 3 pets that I saw. So it was not taken care of. It was in pretty bad shape. So what I did, and in that case, I noticed that the owners were trying every year, beginning of summer, they would list the property, and by end of summer, they would take it off and re-rent it. So it was listed for 200. I offered 165. So if you're a first-time buyer, you can buy it for 3.5% down. If you do the math, that's still not 7,500. In the loan, I built in some rehab cost. So I brought a contractor and got a quote, gave it to my bank. The total cost came to 210, and that's when 7.5 comes out. After 3-4 years after the work I did, pretty much within 6 months, I was able to refinance it because I took the house from 165 to 250.
And were you living there?
At that point,
Or
I was single,
rental?
so I lived in one room. I rented out the other 3 rooms. They were paying for my mortgage, and I was living happily.
So you were living
living
for
for free.
free.
Yes.
Absolutely free. Building equity with $7,500
Yes.
all in.
And then after a while, 4 years later, I got married, and me and my spouse decided, okay, let's buy a house. There was enough equity. I did a HELOC on the house, used that as a down payment for the house I'm living in currently, and there was still left over that a year later we said, you know what, this money is just sitting here doing nothing. Let's go buy something. And we bought a condo with it. And it's been 9 years since that. And you guys have seen the markets, the real estate market, how quickly it's been going up. So I think it's harder to do that today, but opportunities are still out there. The trick is a lot of sweat equity. You have to be willing to work hard. Same thing with my businesses. I bought in, and because my margins are so tight that I am having to work a lot until I got it to a good place where it's running optimally and it's running smooth, that I can think about expanding more. So it's not just like put a little money down and walk away and let it happen. No, you have to work for it.
What do you think about when you're ready to expand? You said you have to get it ready. What's the feeling you get, or is there a specific thing that you look for in your finances to know? Okay,
for the business, the first business when I started KMS Logistics, it was pretty much tail end of COVID. So it was busy. Volume was pretty good, and I was loving the money I was making. And I said, you know what? Like within 6 months, another contractor approached me that, hey, I am looking to downsize. Are you interested? Sure, let's go. In hindsight, not the right step, or maybe a little rushed, and I can get into that. But then I recently, 2 weeks ago, expanded organically. I just had time on my hands. Everything is running smoothly. I am working for an hour, 2 hours a day and just wasting my time. So, okay, let's go do something. These 2 businesses running smoothly and not having to focus on them. And now I can put my energy somewhere else. And once the third one hopefully is running smoothly, then probably I'll do the same thing. It was like, okay, I'm not an idle person. I don't like sitting still. I go crazy. So that's one of the things. And then financially also, I was in a position that I have a little cash on hand. Luckily, with the third one, I haven't had to use it yet, but I have the reserves still sitting there. With creative financing, I was able to get the trucks I need, the equipment I need. So I've not had to put a lot of money down. It's just been my time.
Kamran, with your initial purchase into FedEx, did you leverage your houses as well that you refinanced and repurchased? Or did you purely use your 401k?
I purely used my 401k. That was enough roll in there to get a 10% down. But because I did an SBA loan, then there's a lien on all my properties. So that's the risk there, because at that point, the equity in my properties was less than the purchase price. So they had to put a lien on everything. Now I think it's a little changed. But yeah, so everything is on the line right now. But at one point I was nervous, but now I'm not. I know things are running smoothly. I've learned and gained enough experience in the past 2.5 years that recognize when something is starting to go wrong and jump on it. And that has actually helped me recover much faster than I would have before.
You said that second business you bought, you
Yep.
jumped a little too soon. Can you tell more about that story? What happened? What made you realize you jumped too soon?
I wasn't let me put it this way. I didn't do my homework. I didn't analyze the fleet. I didn't analyze the drivers as much. I was purely looking at my current business and saying, hey, I'm doing good here. I can do it again. But when I got into the second one, I realized that the fleet was not good enough. The drivers were giving me a lot of hard time. So that took a long time for me to fix. If I had done my homework, if I had taken it a little bit slowly, I probably would not have suffered as much as I did. But that's okay. That's a lesson I learned.
Kamran, circling back to the SBA, you said that you put 10% down using your 401k that you had. Most SBAs require 20% down, and then they'll finance the rest of it, and maybe you might have some seller financing mixed in there. How did you convince the SBA lender to do the loan with?
I don't think that's the case. The government rules are 10%. It's the bank that can say, okay, up to 20%. So it depends on what you're purchasing, what their financials look like. Do they have all their documents in place? If there's a risky business, then yeah, the bank is going to want a little bit more down. But with FedEx, the contractors I purchased, my first one was doing it for over 10 years, and they were just tired of it. And the second one was doing it for 4 or 5 years, and he was actually pretty large, and he wanted to downsize. So I didn't have any problems. I've worked with 2 different banks, and they were both able to do it with 10%.
Do you still have those SBA loans? And if so, can you talk a little bit about how you've managed the rising costs over the past 12 to 18 months as interest rates have gone up?
My interest rates on both of the, I still have the loans. I will have them for another 7 years probably, the 10-year loans. My interest rates, when I signed the documents to now, have gone up by 5%. So that put a lot of pressure on me, and it forced me to look at my operations and figure out where I can cut cost. What can I do to improve my bottom line so I can pay off my loans? And that got me into creative thinking. I had to look at my routes, see, where are there any inefficiencies? What is causing me to not be able to reuse it. So I redid all my routes. Then the fleet was the other thing. Is the fleet was old. There were 20-year-old trucks that they were being used. And I looked at my maintenance cost and I said, this doesn't make sense. It's causing too much headache. So, for example, in my second business, in the first year, I spent about $120,000 in repair and maintenance. And yeah, when I looked at the numbers, like what trucks are going for sale, I said, you know what? If I just buy brand new trucks, I'll be paying the same $120,000, but my operations will improve a lot. And one of the hidden benefits of that was, before I was running mostly P700s, and I bought bigger trucks. And I didn't realize at that point, by buying bigger trucks, I can reduce my routes. So there were savings right there, and I didn't. So overall, my cost of fleet went down drastically. Less fuel, less tires, less maintenance, and drivers are much happier being in newer trucks. So that's what I did. It was a risky bet, but it's paid off so far.
So, Kamran, it sounds like in moving forward and purchasing new trucks and having a lower cost for operation with the trucks, you were then able to get rid of maybe one or two drivers that were salaried at, 40 to 50 grand a year. And then you saved that on top of tires, fuel, because you had one or two less trucks going out a day. Are there any other things that you use to cut cost on tires and fuel?
With fuel, I have a fuel card that gives me a little bit of back. It's not much, but some few $100 here and there. Tire.
Which fuel
I'm right
card
now
do you use?
part of Route Consultant's fuel card. It was easy. What I love about it is I don't have to pay the bill. It comes out of my bank account automatically. Because before I kept forgetting to pay the bills and the fuel card would get shut off. So I had to do something about that. Tires, I am not buying the most expensive tires. I try to buy the cheapest tires, because what I found out is the expensive tires are 2.5 times the cheapest tires, and they only last maybe 30% more. So it's better for me to just go cheap on tires. Everything else, I try to buy the right equipment. It's just the tires I unfortunately don't care about.
When you were redoing your routes, were you using DRO or were you doing something manually, or how did you make those adjustments to save
Couple
yourself
of
the
things. I
trucks?
did use DRO. I used work area planner, and I used a lot of input from my BCs, from my managers. Because yes, I know the routes, but they know it much better than I do. And with DRO, and both work area planner, there are features in there where you can run it without anything assigned to it. So the way DRO works is you have a route, you assign a geographical area to it and say, okay, this is the sequence you're going to go in. And that's how it creates the route. You can put your trucks in DRO and just say, go do whatever you want. Basically, let the computer decide how it should cut. And it comes back with some results that are typically better than what I could ever do. Then I take that and go to my managers and say, hey, this is one way of looking at it. Tell me what's wrong here. Tell me what works, what doesn't work. Then we take that feedback together and readjust DRO and then go. So it's been a great tool if you know how to use it. Even in my third businessman organic expansion that I just did, I actually did this a couple of days ago, is before the drivers were getting back at 8 o'clock every day. This one is much more rural area, so a lot more driving. But the drivers were getting back at 8 o'clock. So we did the same thing. We ran the hour blindly and it cut off 2 hours of everybody's day. So then I talked to the drivers, said, hey, this is what it's looking like. Are you willing to try something? They tried it, and it's so far, so good. No complaints. Everybody's liking it because they're coming back at a more reasonable time. With that, yeah.
Kamran,
I was just saying, sometimes computers are smarter than us.
They're smarter than me all the time. So you purchased a couple of businesses in FedEx using leverage, and then you were awarded
Correct.
routes that gave you instant equity. How did you go about targeting, getting those routes? Were you connecting with terminal managers? How did you find them? And how did you eventually win them?
So I got lucky. My first business, in the terminal, my operations is running great. I'm golden medals. I've been gold since it launched, and I'm pretty much in the top tier in that terminal. So I have a good working relationship with the terminal managers. Well, those terminal managers got promoted and became a senior manager at the new terminal that I went to. So I kind of had an insight there. When the listing came up, it came up almost 9 months ago. So this is a 9-month process that I've been talking to them. What's going on? Can I help you? And just showing up and saying, hey, I'll help wherever I can. And just building that relationship.
You physically showed up to the
No,
terminal?
I had calls with the, when the listing came up, I knew who the terminal manager is at that point, and I just called them, hey, tell me what's going on. And at that point, it was just, they were putting out feelers to see if anybody's interested in this. So nothing came out of that. 3 to 6 months later, I guess the contractor lost their contract. So then FedEx put it up again, and I raised my hand that, hey, I'm interested. I want to help. So talk to the manager again. Is there anything I can do today to help you? I'm willing to send staff up because this was post-peak, so I had a little extra staff. And it was pretty much at the middle of February that, hey, I need somebody to cover this stuff while the system goes through vetting the contractors out. And I said, you know what? I'll do it. Don't just make me cover my cost, and I will do everything you need to. That didn't happen at that point, but then the conversation started, and I was eventually awarded the routes. I think one of the feedbacks that I got was I was enthusiastic. I was willing to show up and do the work. And that's what I'm doing right now. So it was building the relationship early on and just raising my hand when they needed help and just being actually genuine. I want to do this. I am doing it. I've purchased 10 trucks so far, brand new trucks. I didn't have to, but I did. And that has set a tone with both the FedEx management and my current staff that, hey, this guy's serious. He's not skimping on money. He's trying to set this up properly. And that's why I love my team right now. They've gone through a rough patch, but they are doing great. They're showing up, they're happy, and it's making me happy.
Do you have a hand in coaching your drivers and helping work on that, creating that culture, or do you
I
leave
leave
that
it
up
up to
to your
BC.
BC
The
or
way I
manager?
have designed my businesses is I am the back end guy. I am the numbers guy, the computer guy. My BCs are the operations. So it is my BC's responsibility to make sure that the operations are running smoothly. I will coach them. I will guide them. But the final result, I want them to handle. Because if I get involved in the day-to-day of it, I will not be able to be everywhere. So that's why I'm relying on my BCs to do that. And it takes a while because my BCs, I have 4 right now. All 4 were prior drivers. And now all of a sudden they're in a management position. So there are challenges with being a manager. There's a different mentality, different things you're responsible for. So it took a while for my first 2 BCs to get comfortable. It took almost a year. But now I don't have to look at anything. I make a phone call. Hey, everything okay? Great. Move on. So with the new station, that's the same thing. I will spend the time, make sure my BCs are ready. They understand the systems. They understand what FedEx is looking for, what I'm looking for. Once we get the results we want, I'll back off and I just monitor.
It sounds like you've been able to implement efficiencies in each business that you've either bought or gotten for free from FedEx. And it sounds like the time on the road for drivers are getting cut pretty significantly by you coming in and implementing
Right.
these changes. How are you paying your drivers right now?
My drivers are paid in various ways. So each CSA is different. It is typically a daily rate, but then there are incentives built in to do some extra work. So that's how some of the prior contractors were doing, and I have enhanced that. So if I'm asking somebody to do something a little bit extra work, then they get a little compensated for that. So that's how I am able to increase my efficiency. And what I'm looking for is I'm very much concerned about work-life balance. I want my team to have a life outside of FedEx. So I'm designing my routes with that in mind, that I want you to get back to the station at a reasonable amount of time so you can go home and have some time with your family. Not that you're working till 8 o'clock, exhausted every day, and then you have your family life suffers. I do not want that. And that's helped me retain good drivers. My turnover rate right now is, currently, I think since the beginning of this year, I don't think I have lost a driver. And I'm up
Wow. Out of how many drivers?
20 drivers. I don't think I've lost a driver again.
Wow.
It's because I am paying attention to what's going on. If something goes wrong, something is unexpected happens, I have my BC go and ask them what's going on. Is everything okay? Is there something bothering you, or is there your route something happened that's causing problems, and we adjust it as quickly as possible. So that's helped them be a little bit happier.
That's great. You mentioned that you've been gold the
Mhm.
entire time since they started the medals program. A huge part of that is safety, which we haven't talked about yet. So, do you feel like your safety score or your safety rating remains high because you do retain the drivers, or is there something else specific that you're doing to help
So
them
to be honest,
remind
I
them of the
have two
safety?
businesses. One is gold, been gold. The other one bordered bronze, and now it's in silver. And safety was the biggest part. So my first business, I had great drivers come on board, and we maintained that culture moving forward. We have our safety plans, safety meetings, talk to the drivers, and luckily the CSA is not such that you're going to have too many accidents. There's not too many driveways that you're going to have to go on. Second business was different. Right away, I think second day or third day after starting that business, I had an accident. Somebody backed into a car. And I kept having one after the other. So I'm still recovering from that. And so with that, I had to really focus on drivers. And what I do is, if I have somebody new come in, after all the safety coaching, after all the call certs, I find out they're still causing problems. If they're running on lawns or going drivers they shouldn't be, I give them one warning, and second warning, you're done. I cannot afford you. So I've been very strict with that. Is safety is important. You have to pay attention. You have to be careful. It's not about time. It's about safety. So with that, now naturally, all the bad drivers are gone. All the good drivers are remaining. So that's how it's worked out so far. But second business, I've had my fair share.
Cameron, when talking to a lot of contractors, they only know their metal rating by the terminal manager verbally telling them. In a previous conversation, you have mentioned that you can actually see that somewhere on, I'm assuming it's My Ground Biz. How can contractors find their metal rating?
So there are two things. If you want details on how metals is calculated, what's in it, what are your areas of focus, that currently only the station can provide. But if you want to know where you're standing today, FedEx launched a tool called Spotlight in My Ground Biz account. Right now, only the owners have access to that. FedEx is working on getting that access to managers as well. It is a great tool because it shows you your efficiencies. It shows you how many stops per hour a driver is doing, how many miles are you driving per route, and overall, how efficient are you running your business? Part of that is also metals. So you can see your current classifications. I believe metals, I think, updates once a month, but that spotlight data updates once a week. So if you are not really involved in the day-to-day and don't know what's going on, I think Spotlight is a great tool. So you can see how efficient you're running. But for me, that data I already kind of know because I'm watching what my drivers are doing on a daily basis. And I know FedEx is planning on adding a lot more features to it, which I'm really looking forward to. That is going to help us improve how we manage our businesses.
When you're watching when you're watching your drivers on a daily basis, what metrics are you looking at? Where are you
My
finding that
biggest tool
information
is
now?
called DSW. It is basically on my ground biz. It shows you how many stops per route you have. And as the drivers are delivering their packages or doing their pickups, it shows you where they are in their day, how many packages they're coding and bringing back because they couldn't get a signature or the business is closed. So I am pretty much on an hourly basis going in, looking at what the progress of my drivers is, how much they have done, what packages they're bringing back, and what codes they're using. And if I see anything unusual, if somebody seems a little slow to me, and I'm concerned they're not going to be able to finish on time, or I see that, hey, there's a business, I know they're open, why are you not delivering it to them? I call my BCs right away. Something's going on, go talk to the driver. And that's how we stay on top of it. So it's constant monitoring.
With that constant monitoring, so it sounds like for the majority of your terminals, you're managing your BCs from afar. And previously, you've mentioned that you get things set up initially, and then you kind of get to step back and just monitor. How many hours a day is FedEx actively taking from your time?
If everything is running smoothly, I want to say I spend maybe 3 hours a day working on FedEx. It is between emails, monitoring, and just doing my books, payroll, all that stuff. So once things run smoothly, it doesn't require much because I don't have any back office support. I am my entire back office. So currently I employ, I think, about 30 people. I have to do all the back office for that. So that's where my time goes. If I had a back office staff, then I don't know what I would be doing.
Do you have any goal in mind as far as how large you would like to grow as a contractor, or do you have any limit in your mind as far as this is the max that I'm willing to do?
So when I started, before I ran purchased, my goal was 100 routes. And I realized that now my goal is different. My goal is to be working from home. I don't want to set up an office. I don't want to have to go back to my corporate world of working 8 to 5, having a bunch of meetings and all that stuff. So I will expand as long as I can continue to work from home, continue to manage everything with minimal support staff, because if I hire somebody, yes, okay, I can maybe outsource some of the things that I'm doing. I'm open to that in the future, but right now, my personal work-life balance matters a lot to me as well. And my sanity matters to me. So I don't think I'm going to be growing so large that I need a full-on hiring staff, accountants, and all that stuff. And the other thing is also age. I want to basically, goal would be to retire when my kids go to college. So I have another 15 years to get that done. Because my kids are pretty young right now. So we'll see. Hopefully that happens.
It really sounds like you've mastered two things in your FedEx business: leveraging other people's money and efficiency. For listening to this podcast, we have people that have been in business for 20 years. We also have people that aren't even in FedEx and they're thinking about getting in. For a contractor that's just coming in, maybe they just purchased routes or they're 2 to 3 years in FedEx and they really want to get their efficiencies dialed so they can work 2 to 3 hours a day. What is the one biggest recommendation you would give to them to get their efficiencies
So
dialed?
if you're a current contractor or you're looking to purchase something, go to FedEx and ask for, I think it's called specs report. It is something FedEx has access to. They don't share it as easily, but it shows you what FedEx has designed that CSA to run as. How many trucks, how many hours, how many stops per hour. When I first learned about that, it changed my mindset completely. Is when I saw that FedEx is giving me money based on, let's say, 9 routes, and I'm running 10 on a daily basis. I started questioning what's going on here. What am I doing wrong? So that's the single easiest way you can analyze your efficiency, your modern day efficiency. And then the other thing is, look at the other systems, look at DRO, look at Work Area Planner, and learn how to use them because they're great tools that will help.
Have you found any tips during negotiations that have helped you out as a contractor?
I am not a very good negotiator. I I
disagree with that, but
so I am starting to look at my offers a little bit more carefully. Before I was okay, just give it to me and I'll figure out what to do, how to make it work. Because I know FedEx has designed their negotiations for me to make some money if I'm doing things right. But now I'm starting to look at, okay, what are they doing? What are their forecasts? And does it in line with reality? If it matches with reality, if it matches with the salaries my drivers are expecting to get paid, if the fuel prices are matching, then I leave it alone. But if I see something is really wrong, then I go back to the table and say, hey, your numbers don't look right. I am very open with my books with FedEx, and I openly share because I don't think I have anything to lose here. By that transparency, and I have a casual conversation that, hey, this is my reality, and it doesn't match with what you're thinking my reality should be. So and I look at my efficiencies and everything else, and if everything is dialed in, then it becomes a conversation with FedEx negotiations. But I haven't had to do that quite too much yet.
So, Kamran, you house hacked your way by putting $7,500 into a house. You then lived for free for several years and stacked money in your 401k and then rolled the house that you already had into 2 other houses. And then you leveraged that 401k to buy 2 FedEx routes and then got another one for free later on. That's an insane amount of leverage. And it sounds like it's worked out very well. And you also have even more equity based off of that risk that you took. For contractors that are looking to grow and they don't have the cash to grow, but they might have equity in their routes or assets, what would you say to them in terms of risk management?
Make sure your financials work out for you. If you are FedEx, the way FedEx does the negotiations, they are very well aware of what it takes to deliver a package from point A to point B. So they know the costs involved. And I have, in my 3 territories, they are all different. And I've seen that, hey, my profit margins on average are about the same. And because FedEx has figured that out for me. So if you're running a business properly, I don't think you should worry too much about it. But if you are not, then there is a risk here. So look at your metals, talk to your station managers about how you're operating efficiency wise. If you're doing good, then I think, and if you have the risk appetite to go get a little bit more, go for it. But if you find yourself that your FedEx is coming to you constantly about what happened here, what happened there, then fix that first. Make sure you understand how to operate the business, because the minute you go into the second one, it sucks away all your time. You can't focus on the first one. And you have to make sure your first one is solid before you can focus on your else. So it's not as much as leveraging debt or finding capital. It's about operations. It's a skill set. So by the way, Jake, to take it a step further, what I'm setting up for future of more leverage is, as part of my last company, I used to get stocks that I never touched. So what I'm doing now is leveraging the stocks as well. I am getting, basically what you can do is, if you have certain amount of stocks, you can get a loan against the value of those stocks, and then utilize that however you wish. And when you're paying it back, you're paying yourself back. So I'm working on getting that ready as well, to even be ready for the future.
So just to clarify, that is with your previous W-2 job?
Previous W2. Like I said,
Are you going to buy more FedEx routes?
I have no idea yet. Right now, I got to focus on my third operation, get it ready, get it smooth. It's not anywhere close to that. Probably take me 6 months to get it there. Then I'll see. In 6 months will be peak, so probably next year. Then I'll figure out if I want to do something else. Knowing myself, I'll probably do something.
Nice. I love it.
Kamran, so much amazing advice. Thank you for sharing with us. I feel like maybe we're ready for the 3 to thrive. What do you say, Jake?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm so stoked and inspired because you, by just living frugally and being okay with a couple years of living in a house with roommates, you completely changed the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. Again, you got to work hard. It's not just about money. It's about working hard. And that's what I've done.
I love it. You want to kick us off with the 3 to thrive, Emily?
Let's do it. Question number 1. What was one of the most worthwhile investments that you have made into your FedEx
I would say
business?
that's my BCs, my 4 BCs. I have spent a lot of time coaching them on how to be a manager, how to manage other people, because what happens is, you see your drivers for an hour a day in the morning and they're on their own. And if they're leaving with the wrong mindset, then their day doesn't go right. So the key is recognizing when something is going wrong in the morning and fixing it, or addressing it at least. So that, for a driver who just became a manager without any prior experience, that's a pretty difficult thing to learn. So doing that, working on that, has been one of the greatest things, because it's freed me up. It has allowed me to focus my time and energy somewhere else and let the BCs manage the team.
Cool. Thank you for that. Our second question for the FedEx 3 to thrive is, oftentimes failure in business is our greatest teacher. Do you have a favorite failure, and what did you learn from it?
So my favorite failure was thinking CSAs are similar. So I have my 2 CSAs. There are probably, the delivery areas are 5 miles apart from each other. So geography-wise, economic-wise, they're fairly similar, but it turned out to be completely wrong. My miles that trucks were driving were very much higher. So my first CSA, trucks are driving 30, 40 miles a day. Second one jumped to 100 miles a day. And I thought that, hey, my 30-mile trucks are working. They're 20-year-old. They don't break down as much. No problems. I can use the same type of trucks. So I didn't even hire a mechanic to go look at the trucks. I just said, okay, these are the trucks, I'll take it. No worries. And that was a huge mistake because, as I mentioned earlier, it cost me a lot of money. And not only money, I had drivers come in on the first day when I stood up, looked at the truck, and just turned around and walked away. I am not walking in that truck. So that was a huge mistake I made, that I didn't do my homework. I thought I'm successful here, I'll be fine over there, because they're not that different from each other. And no, I was completely wrong.
That is a big lesson. All right. Last question for you, Kamran. What is your favorite part about being a FedEx contractor?
My favorite part, I would say, is knowing that I'm creating an opportunity for my team. I'm creating growth opportunities for my team. I'm creating work-life balance for my team. And I think I'm paying them enough to live a comfortable life. I demand a lot. I demand hard work. I do not allow slack. But at the end of the day, if you're doing the job right, you get rewarded for it. And knowing that I have 30 employees right now who are happy, who are working, and I'm creating value for them, that is really rewarding to me.
That's amazing. Kamran, this was an epic episode. Thank you so much for coming on.
This was great. Loved it. Love talking to you guys.
Routing for Success is brought to you by AP Equipment Financing. In today's competitive market, it is essential to acquire the right trucks at a fair price and finance them in a way that makes sense for your business. Leveraging their extensive network of truck and van suppliers, the experts at AP Equipment Financing will help you locate the best deals on step vans, cutaways, panel vans, and more. Deliver them straight to your facility and finance them with low monthly installment options. Click the link in the description or visit apfinancing.com for more information. Routing for Success is an independent production of AP Equipment Financing and is in no way affiliated with or endorsed by FedEx Corporation, FedEx Ground, Amazon, or any other logistics company discussed herein. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Routing for Success.